Exploring the episode, Al otro lado de la webcam from Aida through a deeper analytical perspective reveals a surprisingly intricate portrayal of how everyday people negotiate the collision between private life and digital exposure. What makes this episode particularly captivating is its ability to transform a comedic misunderstanding into a layered narrative where technology functions almost like an intrusive character with its own unpredictable temperament. The episode begins with Aida moving through her cramped apartment with the familiar clumsiness that has always defined her presence. The clutter of scattered clothes, half-eaten snacks, mismatched furniture, and the constant noise of her feuding neighbors creates a chaotic backdrop that visually communicates a life full of tension, exhaustion, and improvisation. Yet this chaos feels lived in and honest. It is the type of environment where people stop pretending and allow themselves the freedom to be unfiltered. When the camera introduces the small, seemingly harmless webcam sitting on her desk, its metallic silence feels ominous despite its innocent appearance. It is positioned like an eye waiting to open, an object that promises both curiosity and disaster. Aida's first encounter with the device carries comedic charm as she squints at it, taps it lightly with a suspicious finger, and mutters to herself. Her fascination with the webcam echoes a very human instinct to explore the unknown, even when we sense it may disrupt the fragile balance of our routine. As the webcam unexpectedly activates and casts a cold bluish glow onto her face, the viewer is invited into a moment of transformation. Aida's expression softens for an instant as she sees her reflection on screen. For a brief moment, she observes herself not as the overwhelmed woman running after small problems, but as someone who exists beyond the demands of her environment. This visual detachment becomes strangely intimate. Her reflection triggers a vulnerability that resonates with anyone who has ever felt caught between who they are privately and who they might appear to be under the gaze of others. The situation escalates without her awareness as the webcam begins transmitting her image to the outside world. As she roams around her home talking to herself, reacting dramatically to chores and venting frustrations she has been bottling up, she remains blissfully unaware that she has become an unintentional performer. Her private monologue carries an emotional authenticity that is both humorous and touching. She rants about her financial struggles, mocks her own bad luck, curses at a broom that refuses to behave, and even narrates her daily routine like a frustrated heroine in an overly dramatic telenovela. These outbursts are hilarious on the surface, yet the rawness beneath them is undeniable. What makes this sequence particularly powerful is how naturally it reflects the deeply human habit of expressing our truest selves when we think we are alone. It is as if the apartment, with all its chaos, has always been a safe cocoon where Aida can unravel freely. The intrusion of the webcam shatters this sanctuary with almost cruel precision. As different characters within the narrative stumble upon her webcam feed, their reactions set the stage for a broader commentary on perception. Some laugh uncontrollably, some express pity, others speculate wildly about the meaning behind her gestures. These differing viewpoints highlight one of the episode's most profound themes. Identity becomes fragmented when viewed through digital eyes. Each viewer interprets her according to their biases, expectations, and emotional instinct, turning Aida into a prism that reflects more about them than about her. This multi-angled perception mirrors the modern reality of online exposure, where one moment of vulnerability can be interpreted in countless ways, each version stripping away another piece of control from the person being observed. The narrative tension reaches a comedic peak when Aida unknowingly stages a dramatic performance while trying to open a jar, then slips on a piece of clothing on the floor and spirals into a long stream of complaints about life's unfairness. Her desperation becomes so exaggerated that it crosses into absurdity, yet it remains endearing because it stems from real exhaustion. The rhythm of the scene carries the unmistakable pulse of everyday frustration, magnified by the irony that a growing audience is watching her meltdown. Just when the comedic chaos seems to settle, Aida finally becomes aware that her webcam has been broadcasting everything, This revelation is executed with impeccable comedic timing. Her eyes widen, her breath stops, and her body freezes before erupting into a frantic frenzy of disbelief. She lunges toward the webcam, waves her hands wildly in front of it, and frantically tries to turn it off as if she could undo the exposure. By sheer force of panic, her emotional shift from confusion to humiliation is almost instantaneous, capturing that universal sense of dread people feel when they realize they have been unintentionally observed. Her frantic attempts to regain control feel painfully relatable in an era where mistakes made online can spread faster than someone can react. The emotional honesty of this moment penetrates through the humor and exposes the deep human fear of judgment. Following this revelation, the episode transitions into a series of encounters that explore the social consequences of accidental exposure. Aida faces teasing, well-meaning reassurances, exaggerated concern, and misguided advice from various characters. These interactions highlight how individuals respond differently to someone else's vulnerability. Some people choose humor to deflect discomfort, others use empathy to soften the embarrassment, and some unwittingly make things worse by overcompensating. Through these reactions, the episode subtly analyzes how society often mishandles moments of public humiliation by focusing more on the spectacle than the emotional impact on the person involved. What adds richness to the narrative is the way Aida begins internalizing the incident. Her sense of self becomes distorted by the imagined gaze of others. She grows hyper-aware of her posture, her voice, her appearance, and even the objects around her. In an attempt to regain dignity, she tries to reinvent herself for the webcam. She adjusts her hair, applies makeup with theatrical precision, rearranges her living space, and practices different facial expressions in front of the screen. This transformation is simultaneously humorous and tragic. It reveals the psychological pressure that arises when people feel compelled to curate ideal versions of themselves for potential digital audiences. Aida's exaggerated makeover becomes a symbolic representation of the modern obsession with presentation, perfection, and public approval. However, the longer she attempts to maintain this polished facade, the more unnatural she becomes. Her forced elegance clashes comically with the deeply chaotic environment she lives in. The contrast exposes the futility of trying to mask genuine imperfections in a world where authenticity ultimately reveals itself, no matter how carefully curated the image. The tension reaches a quiet emotional crescendo when Aida abandons the facade and finally allows herself to relax. She sits back, sighs deeply, and wipes away the makeup she had meticulously applied. In this moment, she confronts the raw truth of the situation. She cannot undo what happened, but she also does not want to reshape her identity out of fear. This acceptance becomes a turning point in the episode, offering a subtle but powerful message about self-compassion. It suggests that vulnerability, once embraced, transforms from a source of shame into an opportunity for growth. The final scenes shift toward reconciliation as the characters around her slowly stop treating the incident as entertainment and begin to recognize the emotional weight it carried. Their attitude softens, and even though the humor remains, it is now accompanied by a sense of solidarity. The digital mishap that once felt like a catastrophe becomes a communal experience that fosters understanding rather than mockery. The closing image of Aida looking into the now silent webcam is particularly evocative. She no longer stares at it with fear or embarrassment, but with a kind of resigned confidence. Her expression conveys acceptance of the unknown, an acknowledgement that exposure is an inevitable part of modern life, but should never dictate her worth. The episode fades out with a lingering sense of equilibrium, suggesting that while technology can complicate human relationships, it can also illuminate deeper truths about authenticity and connection. What makes Al Otro Lado de la Webcam a standout narrative is the way it blends humor, chaos, and introspection into a cohesive exploration of digital age anxiety. It articulates the unsettling feeling of being observed without permission, the instinct to overcorrect when embarrassed, and the emotional liberation that follows when one chooses authenticity over performance. Beyond its comedic surface, the episode invites viewers to reflect on their own behavior in front of screens, the personas they construct, and the hidden vulnerabilities that lie beneath curated images. Ultimately, it delivers a universal message that even in moments when our private selves become unintentionally public, the strength of character lies not in perfection, but in the courage to laugh at ourselves, learn from discomfort, and continue forward without letting fear define us.